I first wanted to talk to you about how much of a visionary you are as a filmmaker. Your films are so visually rich. This film, it's like every frame is a painting. It's so, so beautiful. Colours, the camera, direction, everything. When you sort of envisioned this film initially, I know it was a loose adaptation of a Bulgarian film, but when it came to the story, so much of it is so different. And again, like you have such a rich vision with your film. Did images come first or did story come first? Did it come to you in visions, in imagery initially?
Yes, well, I had seen a film that it's kind of based on. I mean, you can see it on the internet, I'm pretty sure. The main thing was that in retrospect, I realized that what got me to make this film was more a school teacher of mine than probably this, that when I was in a boarding school in the Himalayas, and every time they would have snow, we'd go to Iran in our holidays. But the teacher that we had there, we used to see one movie per week. It was Mrs. Anand. And what she would do is, I would say, she would tell us stories on cliffhangers. She would tell a story, and right at the, like at this thing, she'd say, oh, come back next week. And she was making these stories up. And this only comes to me in the last, I would say, about 5-6 years. My friends who saw this film, who I went to school with, told me that's where you got it from. And I kind of realized it's so true. Because what she would do is use our body language to tell us a story. And when that happens, before cinema came along, the story belonged as much, if you hear it in a Moroccan market or anywhere, as much to the crowd, as a musician would tell you when they play to a crowd. The crowd is as much got to do if they're playing it to 5 people or 10,000 people. Their body language dictates the pace and everything. So for me, Mrs. Anand is truly the person who did this, because she would make up stories that we couldn't, for the life of us, perceive as made up. Because she would just use, I mean, we didn't know how she knew about it. We were like 8-9 years old, so she could read our body language, and she just knew about how much she knew. So about how much we knew. So she would make up stories like, I remember it was 1972, so it was Dakuman. Any Indians here? So you've got Dakuman Singh, who'd kind of be like the Robin Hood of this thing, meeting James Bond and solving the Watergate scandal. and we kind of knew there was this thing called Watergate, but we never ever thought we were making this up. So next week when she'd come back, she'd say like, oh, where was I? And we were like, as if she doesn't know. It was so impossible for us to perceive that she was making it on the cuff by reading our body language. So when I saw this film, I realized that was the theme that I wanted to explore, that at a time before cinema, I mean, once you make it, you kind of come to terms with the film, everybody watches it and that's it. But before cinema came along, even before writing, when you use the body language of the other people to tell the story, I was interested in that format. So then who is really the author? And that was the theme that I used. And my background is very visual. It isn't really critic-friendly, because everybody will always say that I put the cart ahead of the donkey, that I put the visuals first maybe. But in this one, I took that shell of a story, and I just said, I'm going to make a medium that she tells the stories in, that the genres don't exist. It would have been a lot more commercial if I could have made it a contemporary film, which the original film was. But I couldn't make it because I couldn't for the life of me think where that I could find a child that would hear stories and not be, and basically not, because it would just become funny. If you told them a serious story, they would think of a Hindi movie, they would think of a song. It just kept getting funnier and funnier. So I just said, no, it should go to a time when there is no genre. That gives me a blank canvas, that I can make whatever I want, because he could mean one thing, she understands a different thing. So that's why it became a period piece, which made it even more uncommercial, but it gave me as blank a canvas as I could have. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, is that I was literally looking for that. I come from eye candy land. I do music videos. I do these things, and I like visual medium. But I was looking for a bottle to put it in, and the bottle was trying to tell a story to somebody else with a struggle for authorship, and the story will meander, which is the big problem with why people get bored when they watch it on their telephone or think on why it doesn't work in any particular format. Because the time that I'm cooking is, and the third writer who came on, he told me how to solve that problem. He said, you do the Hitchcock thing, you cut, if two people have a boring conversation, cut to the time bomb underneath the table, and now they can have this conversation, there's tension. So he just said, set up this guy's agenda earlier. and it would be a lot more. And he was right. I thought about it for a week, and I just said, no, I can't do that, because I just think if I had his agenda, I would not like this guy from the beginning. So I just thought, I want you to fall in love and see that the movie's about meandering and about this eye candy, and then the agenda is played. It made it a lot less commercial. And by the way, I'm not broke, I'm doing fine, sorry, but it did break me.
So I guess that was the decision to shoot with little script and just allow the actors to just bounce off one another. That came from that teacher.
More for her,
Yeah,
less
absolutely.
for Lee, because
Yeah.
Lee's job is really very difficult here, because she can do whatever she wants, but he knows where it has to be driven. So I did shoot the movie in sequence. The first day she met him was the first day she met him. The second scene is the second day. The third day is the third day. So everything I had made, and nobody on set knew that Lee Pace could walk. So we had made this whole thing up. We changed his name, and we said in the fantasy stories, the father is the hero, the other father. So that's what was left on the side. So then basically everybody was expecting, like Lee Pace wasn't supposed to walk, because that wasn't so much got to do with method acting. It had more to do with, for me, that if you've ever been on a film set, no matter how Auschwitz, you could be doing anything dark material, but after some time when you're filming, people start standing on your bed, all the Nazi jokes come out, they start lighting things around you and everything, and it goes bad. And I just said, no, I just want everybody to be delicate around Lee, so that she buys the whole thing. So nobody knew that he could walk, including the cameraman. So in the end, when I did tell them, they were crying and people were angry, and with good reason. But I was just kind of saying, like, hey, it was just made so that the girl that you wouldn't start standing on his bed while lighting, and the atmosphere was dark. It was very, very difficult for Lee, because if you see it now, I see it on the big screen, especially, when she moves, he has to light her, then hear what she said, then he has to speak to her, because there are no camera, everything is lit. So every time when I'm watching now, I kind of go like, that's the unsung hero, because a child, she's incredible, and dogs and monkeys, I mean, people will always cry and it'll work out, but Lee has to light her, hear her, and move his agenda forward.
Yeah.
That's the unsung hero. So was there a question there?
Well, my next question was
Okay.
about Lee. Sort of what was it about him that made you think, yeah, he can deal with this?
Because
type of-
I thought I'll have to go to film school. I wanted nobody to know this person. Sorry, you guys. So I wanted nobody to know this person. So I just thought, I'll probably go to film school to find this person. And then I saw this film where he had played a woman. He had only played one role before, and he had played a woman. It's a film called A Soldier's Girl. So I knew nobody would recognize him. So I just went with him, and when I heard him talk, I realized he's got such a silky voice, and 85% of the story is his voice. So that's what made me fall in love with him. And also, unfortunately, I had picked a style of acting that is very, very difficult, and as I made a rod for my own back, there's a movie, only one time have I seen a child act like that, and I love, Little Princess and all the Hollywood style of acting, but the style I went for is only one time I'd seen in a film called Ponette. It's a French film, where I could not understand how the girl was acting as naturally as she was. And she was about 4.5. So with my nieces and nephews, I would have loved for them to be in one of the films, because I just think whenever there's no money and you need to abuse children, you use family. But there was no money, but they were never at the right age. So my nephew's here right now, he's there. So none of them were the right age. So I kept looking for this thing about 9 years. And the moment I saw her, I knew we were done. I just said, that's the girl. And then I had to scramble for everybody else. So everybody else was cast immediately, because I told my brother that in 3 months, that's a different child. And I thought the child should be about 4 years old, like the girl in Ponette. But I got it wrong, because every time I looked the tape, I would tell somebody, just do a wide shot and tell the crowd a story. I'll find my child. So I tried Scotland, Ireland, India, Russia, everywhere. I'd done it for 9 years. And then I saw this wide shot one time, but I saw this Romanian girl. And I went like, oh my God, what's happening here? And then I found out that she didn't speak English very well. So they were told that they're going to be doing a documentary with a handicapped guy. So her questions were completely genuine. So I just told them, okay. And she was 5.5. So I realized, okay, that bought me that 1 year of believing it. Because I saw it that with my nieces and nephews, at about 4, you could fool them. And after 5, they were acting. 5 till about 9, there was a big gap. And at 9, you found great actors. So I just said, okay, this is the girl, we find Lee, and I found his voice. And the moment I met him, I just told him, nobody will know this is going to be, and it was very difficult for him to, while everybody's having fun in South Africa, it would take him an hour and a half because he would come in this wheelchair, they'd pick him, they'd move him there, and he just had to go there. But the only thing I wasn't ready was, I didn't realize how scared kids are of handicaps. And she was terrified of Lee. So she saw him and wouldn't go near him. And then I just thought, oh, well, that's the natural reaction. So that's why in the first scenes, she doesn't come near him. I just had her play. Then she came closer. By about the third day, she was in love with him. She wouldn't stop kissing him. And then I had to pull her back a little bit. And the only thing I had to adjust for after about 10 days, because I was giving all the directions, is she started speaking English much better, but with an Indian accent. And then I had to use the Romanians, and I put in another Chinese whisper that I would speak to the Romanian dad, who would tell her, and there would be even more mistranslations. And I just said, we take it how it goes. So Lee's incredible, but he was the only person I had. But the agents did tell me that if you're going to cast somebody, don't say one person because the agents will kill you on the price. They said, just try to see many people. But the moment I saw Lee, I just said, you're the only person I have if you can do it. And he said, I'm in, and that was it.
I mean, my next question was why Katinka, but I feel like you've answered it. She was.
Well, there was only one, and I don't think everybody understood that she was the reason I triggered, because I'd been looking for the child for 9 years, 24 years. I'd been doing location scouting. I had everything set in mind, but the child was what was going to trigger it. And at a very critical time, two things happened. I mean, Fincher, who kindly gave his name along with Spike for the film in the end, because nobody wanted to buy it, even for free, is that. Now I lost my chain of thought. What was the question?
It was why Katinka.
Why Katinka, yeah. Well, she was incredible. The moment I saw her, I told my brother, sell everything. This child is not the same in 3 months. And she will tell us what to do. Yes. So there was a lot of carte blanche for her. So she is being natural, but there's a lot of places that she's acting, and I'm taking lines from here and there and doing it differently to put it in. It's just there's no cheating for Lee. But she was incredible. I just thought that she was an incredibly emotional child and very close to that real situation. She had no father figure in the home. The mother was there. So I had a chat with the mother, and I said, this is going to be very difficult, but I do think, in the West, and white people are a bit too sensitive with their kids. She will survive. You will have a hard time. I just said, when a kid cries for them, their doll breaking down, the house burning down is the same equivalent, but they don't know the difference. But for the adult, it's very difficult when that happens. So when the child cries, it'd be very genuine, and everybody would say that, oh my God, Imega, and 2 seconds later we'd be at lunch, she would only talk to me, she would only eat on my lap, and she'd be fine with me, but the mother was traumatized and everything. And I told them that you have to take this in the beginning, because she'll be fine. Yeah. I was more worried about the adults, and she was fine. She's an incredible woman. Yeah. I call her my Russian tank, and she always says, like, no, your Romanian tank. And I just realized, if you can next time, invite her. She's in England.
She is, isn't she? You said she's based in the north of England.
She's in the north right now. She works for Watersons, and she has a very strange hobby.
We're not going to go further than that.
No, again, she loves pole dancing.
Good for her.
Good for her. She doesn't do it for this thing. She just likes it and keeps her fit. I love this girl.
There was actually some chatter online recently about the nature of directing children in films and the difficulties, because they aren't the same as adults. Their imaginations are a whole different level. I mean, this is a story about childish imagination.
Also, they have an incredibly steep learning curve.
Yeah.
If you think you can fool them with the same trick twice, it never works. You have to change the tricks and up the ante. They learn incredibly fast. So, yeah.
One more question just to indulge me. Okay. This is one I've been thinking of for a while. It's like my favorite scene in the film, when she wakes up from surgery, and obviously all the terrible things are happening in the story, but she is basically begging Roy on behalf of the bandit. She's referring to the bandit, and then she says, I don't want you to die, referring to Roy. Was that like a line that you had fed her?
No, that's all there. That was a very hard day, because usually when we were shooting, that was the last day of the shoot, because I did the hospital in order. I did the fantasy over 4 years, and spent all the money, then made some more money and put it on the back of things and shot all over the world. But for that particular scene, it was very difficult, because I knew that if we had that scene, we had the film. But that day, she was horrible. And every time, we never did more than 3 takes, because I just realized that she would learn it so quickly that the first time she would do a scene, she would didn't know where to go, and there was a lot of problems. Second was 99% of the takes. she would get it and it worked. Third one, she would get it and you had it. By the fourth one, she was like, Roy, what are you doing? She'd be acting and it was horrible. So in that particular time, somehow is the only, that's why I always use the same take for both of them, and it cut like magic. This scene, I knew I had the license because I had a lot of fantasy to cut to. But when she arrived on that day, somehow it was very bad because he blew his whole performance by about the third take, knowing that I never go forward more than that. She was horrible till about the seventh one. And then suddenly something happened, and I told her something. There was a present that we were supposed to give because the last day of shooting, and her stand-in had gotten this. It was some sort of a bicycle thing that they used to get. It's called wheelie or something. And I told her, I've got that for you. And suddenly she woke up. And I think Lee was all surprised and trying to arrive there, but he never could. So that's the only one where I have the third take, his third take. But her, much later.
Yeah.
Because when she exploded, so she was really bad, and a lot of that audio, I had to lie and cheat a lot. So if you look at that, a lot of that is not on her face, and I was writing the script to make it work because I don't know how this thing it is, because I needed that dialogue. So when I saw that I had enough on her face, I did ask her mother a week before because I knew that that was the hardest scene. If I don't have it, what will I do? And I asked the mother, like, what is she really scared of? And she said injections. And we were supposed to have all injections to go to India, the vaccination things, which was 3 days before. And I just thought, why waste it? So we all had our injections. And on the last day when she did the performance, and I needed her dialogue, all that dialogue that she's saying is to the doctor, because I told him, okay, well, go ahead and vaccinate her because we are going to India. So she just went like, oh, no, not right now. So all that stuff, she's talking to the doctor who has to give her an injection because she has to go to India. So a lot of cheating, but that line's on her mouth. And I got that line later. So I just thought that it should be enough on her face so it isn't on Lee's ear or anything. Yeah. But Lee had freaked out, and he knew that she wasn't arriving, and he's really angry at one particular point. And he does this, and I see her shake. When I look at the wide shot, I notice now that when he takes his head down, you can see her going like this, like, which character is this now? So she was really scared of him on that particular one. And then we told everybody that Lee can walk, and everybody is shocked and traumatized, except her. I think for her, every day was such a brand new thing happening, and we told her, Lee can walk. She was like, oh, okay. Like, that's another good thing. It was just, the person who was really angry on that day, I just realized, probably if I ever see him, I will apologize, was the focus puller. Because when we went out there, I gave the wrap party of the movie before we went on the shoot, because I just, on the first day of the shoot, I gave the wrap party before. I said, I don't know if my money will run out or where we will be, so I don't know where the crew is going to be. And we had the wrap party. And everybody, and Lee, of course, came in his wheelchair. And when we were there, I saw him sitting really embarrassed and awkward to another gentleman in a wheelchair. And he was talking to the focus puller's dad. And I went up, and he was doing like, so I went up to him, and the dad was saying, you know what, in Hollywood, they always use people who are not handicapped to play handicapped. Balls to this director for getting, and Lee's like, oh, geez, like, no, we got to tell him. And I just said, you know what, I've got the cameraman, I've been with him for 15 years. He's never shot a film before. He was my loader, and I've just upgraded him. He knows me for that many years. People I've known for 20 years on here, and they don't know he can walk. We can't do it, so I didn't do it. So on that day, he was the only person I went to go to the focus puller to say, I'm sorry, but he wouldn't have it. And I just said, is it justified? I believe it. I'm sorry, but I had to do this because I couldn't tell anybody. I think I answered it somewhere on that.
Yeah.
She had carte blanche. For me, it would be like, I think when I used to do the Levi's ads here, Sir John Haggerty. I remember he used to always say that if you hire people, if you hire a dog, don't bark yourself. And for me, Aiko was a hero of ours in school. And then she got married to my best friend. So when we were in school, she was directing commercials in Japan. And we used to see her work. We could hear, we didn't even see a lot of the videos. And the first time she did a movie that we saw was Mishima. And she had done the costumes and the sets. And we loved her. And then when I was doing my first feature film, The Cell, I asked everybody, like, oh, I want Eiko Ishioka. They said, oh, you want somebody like Eiko? I said, no, I want Eiko Ishioka. Oh, you want somebody like Eiko? I said, I want Eiko. And I just knew that there isn't another one. And they were trying to find somebody else. So when they introduced me to her, me and her just gelled like anything. So for me, it was great. And when we were shooting that time, my girlfriend that time came up to me and said, like, I think Eiko and Nico, my best friend, who I used to see her stuff with, are going out together. I said, like, what a dizzy broad. Like, she's 40 years older than him. Like, what the hell are you talking? And then, of course, when the movie was over, they said, we're in love and we're going to be together. So it was the luckiest thing in my life that every film I did after that, I had her at ground zero. So I would just tell her something, and she was, like, you tell people when you want them to go crazy, you say, think outside the box. You couldn't say that to Eiko. She had no idea what the box was. You had to make things and then rein her in, because they would be so impractical and so weird. And the only one that was tough in the end that I did not agree with her, and she didn't know what I wanted, and neither of us did until the end, was Odysseus' clothes. Everybody else, it was like talking to a child. I just said, like, this person is from somewhere else. You go with what you want. And she just, and you had to trust her, because there's people who can draw incredible stuff, and then you look at it later and it's shit. And Eiko's stuff was never that. She would just she would just say, you see this thing? She'd go to the Natural History Museum and she'd bring a bug. And she said, the fur of this thing with the design of that thing, and I go like, yeah, makes sense to you, yeah, okay, all good, all good. So I just pretended that I understood. I never did. But only tough one that was there was Odysseus, because Odysseus' character changed at the last minute for us. When we were shooting all that particular time, I said the reason I got to make this movie is that I had made a lot of money in advertising, and a very critical time, my girlfriend dumped me. And that's exactly when I found the Katinka. And I just said, I have no idea what this money is for. Let's just blow it up. And that's what we did. So for me, when we were making it, it was carte blanche and everything. And when we were there, it was about, I think, maybe a couple of weeks before, was Nico, Eiko's husband now. He's the one who turned to me and said, like, because the villain in the original thing in all our scripts was supposed to be Walt, the hypochondriac in the room. And he said, isn't it better if the hero is the villain is actually the movie star, who's actually a really good guy, but because he stole his girl, he makes him a really horrible person. And I could so relate with it, because I came very close to being handicapped myself once. And the heartbreak that I had from this woman was, I would just say, insurmountable for me. It was, and I just went like, I could relate with it. So I just said, yes, he's handicapped, but the thing that he's stopping him from moving on is a broken heart. So we changed that character. So when I pulled that on Eiko, she was designing him like a monster all the time. And because I would say, he's this monstrous guy, and her English was very limited too. So the last second, we just said, he can just be, as David Lynch would say about Frank, he can just be a suave fuck. So we just made the same clothes in silk, and we just said, that's it. So everybody else was abnormally giant, like a caricature of how a child would imagine. But this guy, by the third act, the girl is already quite traumatized, and he's bringing realism into it. That was the right answer. But then we only made that up, like literally 2 weeks before the shoot. We just switched the bad guy. I love location shooting. So for me, my father worked when I was in a boarding school in the Himalayas. My father worked as an aircraft engineer in Iran. So we had free tickets. So as a child, I traveled a lot. And I loved that experience. So for me, I knew that this thing, as I call it, like, Mammoth speak or Kubrick speak, it's very stylized. When you see those films when they come out, they look dated. But when you look at them 30 years later, everything around that thing dates, but that thing kind of stays exactly the same. And I had that in mind for this, that if you do locations, no matter how incredible your CGI and your effects are, but after some time, it'll never equal to what a real location looks like. So I had decided that earlier. It was a lot from one, right? It's 28 countries that we ended up shooting in the end, and I loved it. And you say aspiring creative, all I can say is I have a nephew from Huddersfield, and when he was asked in his class, I don't know if I should say the same answer to you, when he was about 14, he called me and he just said, like, so what do I have to be to be a director? And I went like, and I realized some teacher had asked him, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he thought, like, who's the most successful person I know? Yes, that uncle. So he said, I want to be a director. And the teacher said, what will you do to be that director? So he called me, and I talked to him for 15 minutes. I won't do his Huddersfield accent, but he asked, you talked to me for 15 minutes, and I told him, like, read other things. What kind of things? Read anything. Okay, books, yeah, comics, yeah, anything you want to read. Read, do this, do that. And if you like something, if you like a sport, do it, indulge in it. And he's like, well, I said, you're very young. What you should do is travel. Try to be a foreigner. Try to be a foreigner in different places. It will teach you, how to treat others. And I talked for about 15 minutes, and he goes like, You mean like geography? I said, yes. He said, thank God, because I fucking hate art. And I went, okay. Stay in Huddersfield. So I don't know where you're from, but I don't know if travel is the answer. It was for me. All I can see is find what you think is your strong point and try to exploit it. It might not work with the critics because they like the donkey in front of the cart. So a lot of these particular places I had put, the locations I went there, and I would just say, oh, this is incredible. I just knew that Darwin was going to die, but I didn't realize how cinematic I wanted it to be until I go to particular locations. And that happened literally on the recce. I had recce'd everything before, but that one I had not found before. I saw these people, the stepwell sequence, where people were going down a place with about 10 steps, and they were taking out water. And I said, oh my God, that's incredible. I said, how deep does it go? They said, very deep. I said, how deep? They said, very deep. I said, how deep? They said, well, it goes down. And apparently, those things are about 400 years old. They're made for taxing people. This the water level that's there. So when the water level goes down, they know how much rain you had. If it comes up, they know how much rain you didn't have. So you just keep walking down the steps. And that's what happens. So I said, oh, find a place where there's a drought. So they found a place, and the steps were right till down. So I went and shot it there. Unfortunately, I'll always be accused of copying people that sometimes are ahead of or behind me, and I like them sometimes, and sometimes I don't. So for me, when I did that film, I remember nobody had ever shot there. And before, because nobody wanted the movie, and it took about 4.5 years for me to even get it to any screen, I remember somebody, from Hollywood would go there and say, like, so it's the same shot here. Where did they shoot? They say, in that well. They go, oh, in this shitty little well. They go, oh, okay. So before my movie came out, there were 5 Hindi movies with there, and a whole bunch of dance sequences there. So suddenly it looked like I was copying those films. So I was like, some places I was the first. We got stoned out of those places. Some place for religious reasons, and some place for other strange reasons. But I just didn't let that thing go. I was possessed, not obsessed.
Yeah.
I think the movie, like if I made the movie today, it would be different. And now I have a son, and I look at him and I go like, wow, that time it was like, what is this money for? Just blow it up. Now I look at that little turd and I go like, oh, I got to leave him something. So I kind of like wouldn't spend all my money. I wouldn't do it there. But that particular time when I waited, it is where I was. I was trying to make this castle and metaphorical and live with the girlfriend. And then, when she dumped me for the director, I was just like, what is this for? And I think Fincher was the one who always, he said, like, every guy who's in advertising makes a lot of money, always talks about a passion project that they never do. He said, you're the guy who did it. I said, yes, I'm the idiot who did it. Because at a particular time, it was the perfect timing. I just had a lot of money, and I didn't have a life. I just was trying to live with somebody, and they didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I just thought, like, oh, okay, then this is the baby. And so if your question is, would I make a different film now? Yes, I would. The motivation was just to get this monkey, not like Wallace, off my shoulder. I couldn't breathe because of it. So it wasn't that, I couldn't function without it. So very selfish reason, I wanted to function. And every time I would get a Hollywood offer or anything, I would just turn around and go like, oh, no, we got to make this movie first. This was, my brother said, we're going to be like 2 old guys that will always talk about a movie that they never make. So you want to make this or no? And that week is when I found Katinka. And I just said, like, sell everything and let's go on a magical mystery tour. So, and I told him, if you're going to sell the house, call me. And then the last week when we were kind of filming, I told him the movie's almost done. He said, the house is up for sale. And I said, it's done. So I kept the house and made, thanks to Uncle Sam, I got a really big tax break because nobody wanted it. So whatever Uncle Sam gave me back, and thanks to advertising, I did fine. But it was something that was stopping me from doing other things. So it was a very selfish reason I made it. I just wanted to function.
Wow. I mean, you've been reading my mind this whole Q&A because I was about to bring up the Fincher quote to close off. Yeah, I literally had it written down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to say...
By the way, if everybody can, they're about to cancel Love and Robots. Please go and just tell
really?
Netflix that this is fucking something amazing. If you can, I'll try to find out from Fincher if there's how people can petition it. But it is just the most incredible thing there is. And especially animation-wise, and they're about to cancel it. So he just wrote to me yesterday saying, like, so we're all trying to write some quotes, but I think if General Janata Party means Jing Bang Gang, if you guys write something, hopefully, please, if you know anybody in Netflix, tell them to wake up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think every filmmaker out there deserves an opportunity to just pursue their sort of dream project? And
No,
just,
I know a few people whose films are horrible.
Oh, okay.
But
Well,
that's, I'm kidding. That's a personal thing.
Are
'cause
you?
we used to have teachers who would just encourage everybody, like, no matter what you do, follow your dream, this thing. And I would go like, no, like just give them some sort of, do you want to make a commercial film? Do you want to make a personal film? Do you want to make a film that is just for your grandmother? It's okay, because right in our time, the big thing was that, it was like a Wizard of Oz. You made a little film, and then nobody knew who was behind the curtain. It was so magical. But now anybody with a telephone can make a film. So it's not about telling a story anymore. It's about getting eyeballs to the story. And believe me, there's enough shitty stories out there. So I don't know if everybody should make a film, but if you feel strongly about it, just try to figure out who it's for. If it's for you or general people, everything, and I don't know. I used to always joke and say, hey, sleep your way up to the middle, and then maybe then you'll have to work. Doesn't work anymore. You've got a telephone, just go make your movie. And then if you find eyeballs on it, and if you have a singular vision, what will happen is either you'll be embraced or you'll be hated. And I think both of those are fine. It's just the comme ci comme ça that's terrifying for me. So when people tell me it's shit, they didn't buy this, I go, I'm okay with that. But when they go like, I go, fuck off.
well, I and many people in this room can say thank you.
And thank you, but
chasing
where
your
the fuck
vision.
were you 20 years ago?
They're here
Thank
now.
you.
They're here now.